Okay, so how's everybody doing? All right, so the new year is here. So what I want to do here is, I know that I have some paint tutorials that I'm working on, but they're not ready yet, and I have a few other projects. Well, not other projects than the ones that I've already done prior, but there's just some other details that need to be added before I go ahead with paint. And I want to make sure that I'm set up properly and that I organize that so that it's more effective for the time that I choose to upload them and show them. In the meantime, I did have this locomotive, as some of you may or may not know, on the go, the CN GP40-2. And I want to finish it, actually, and I've been waiting for the Loksound decoder, which just came in the mail, and then I have these other TCS WOW speakers that I want to use, the 28mm ones here. And so I just want to keep this as brief as I can, because I know it's been done before, but they are all unique though. Like, they're all different, right? And so I want to describe this one as I've documented the other ones, because I know it's not the most exciting thing for most people, but there are people that log in to view them to glean some information. If they've decided to do a custom sound DCC install themselves. And enough of us are doing it for good reason, right? We're doing it because the quality of the sound, like if you want the best quality of the sound, then it's best to do a custom install. Now, some would say, oh, sound is in the ear of the beholder. Okay, fine. But there's a reason why there's, Bose speakers and BMWs and high quality equipment, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have any of it. We just have one standard Volkswagen of a sound board and one basic speaker. So there are a lot of options to choose from, and there are ways to increase the integrity and quality of the sound. And the best way to do it is to do a custom install. Now, in this case, I mentioned earlier, and I have to retract a bit because I said I was going to do possibly 4 speakers install, like the Sugar Cube speakers. But I'm actually not going to do that after thinking it through. This is an Atlas GP40, the older frame, as some of you may or may not recognize. The new ones, this is a silver, Atlas silver. Now, the new Atlas silvers don't have this type of A-frame 30mm opening speaker type metal cabinet. I really like these, but I think that they can be improved, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to improve this one, because I have one of these in my BC Rail -7, and I think it could sound like, it sounds pretty good. It has a TCS decoder in it, which I also like, but it sounds pretty good. But I have to say that it doesn't sound as good as it could. And what I mean by that is, compared to like the GP9 and especially the MP15, my goodness, even with a small airtight speaker enclosure, it sounds just awesome. Now, I know that could be due to quality of recordings and so on, that those are going to factor in. But I think that in this case, these really very good TCS WOW speakers, the 28mm. I have 2 of them sitting here in my supply, and I want to use them because the A-frame is already here and it's metal, right? So with the weight. So I'm going to show you quickly how I'm going to go about mounting all of this, because a revision has to be made for the actual decoder. Okay? So as it stands, if you remove this A-frame speaker mount, and then you want to mount this Loksound decoder, yes, it'll drop into these existing mounts here, but the problem is, as you can see right here, is it's not going to sit down inside those clip style tabs when you push down and they pop outwards to lock it in, because it's going to hit the metal here, this metal frame piece, which I already shaved down a bit. I don't want to take any more metal out of this. Okay, and I'll deal with the back here in a minute. So that's not going to work, right? Unless I remove a big chunk of this metal, which I don't want to do. Okay. Furthermore, if I mounted it according to the default mounts on the engine frame, this TP style A-frame speaker mount is not going to work, right? See? So it's going to, like, it needs to come out all the way to here, and it just will not work. So we have to bypass this altogether, and I'll show you what I've done. What I've done is I've built this plastic through Evergreen. This is 20 thou, actually 30 thou plastic, sorry. And then what I'm going to do is so I mounted in the frame, speaker mount first. And then I basically laid up a plastic strip. I cut exactly the width of this frame, which is, that's 18 millimeters, right? And then I just drew the lines from the side here and cut openings in it, and then so that this mounts in like this. Should snap in place here. So hold on. Okay, so that's a little bit loose on there, but that's okay. So now you can see that I've put a couple of plastic rails here as well to raise the board up a little bit off of this plane here. Okay, and I'll show you. And then I'm going to glue this piece to go over top of here, over the frame here, so that I can take advantage of these holes here where I can reuse the screws, or I can use plastic dowels and then glue the actual mounting plate in place with canopy glue. So this will get mounted like this. Okay, just another plate. I just do dry runs and cut, right? Like there's no drafting really involved here. Just eyeball in, mark lines, cut, just trial and error. I mean, yours might look different than this, which is fine. So now we have these two rails to raise the board up off this platform and above these tabs, which I shaved down just a little bit. So this will sit like this now. See? And then I have a little bit of a return back here because I don't like metal close to these tabs. I mean, that's not necessary, but I like to do that if you're mounting wires and so on. There's a bit of a guard there, a plastic guard, to stay away from this A-frame speaker mount. And then you can see the plastic plate here extends a little ways further out from these soldering tabs as well. And then furthermore, you can see that the board has got cooling. See the space there? Because these can get warm, these boards, right? So there's enough there. I just raised it up where I'm going to run screws to mount the board to this plate. And then underneath there's plenty of air to flow. Okay? So that's solved. That's how that will get mounted. And there's plenty of room up here inside the cab because we'll be rerouting LED lights. So there's a lot of room actually in this short 4-axle switcher frame, a lot more than I realized with this frame. Now the newer frames are different. They're all blocked out with metal. They're heavier, and you're almost forced to use just a standard default speaker box, which I won't use because I find them not to be airtight and they're too small. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I want to show you what I have to do with the speaker. Okay, so here's the speaker enclosure modification that I want to do on this Atlas Silver Series GP40-2. Now this is the older frame, as I mentioned earlier, with this type of A-frame, which is open on the bottom, right? And it mounts two speakers inwards, facing inwards. Now what I want to do with this is I want to seal this. I want to make this airtight, okay? And I'll show you the speakers that I want to use. As I may have mentioned, I have two of these TCS WOW speakers. They're 28 millimeters. These are really good speakers if they're mounted properly. Like I have two mounted in a similar A-frame style, but it's not sealed. And I don't think that they sound as good as they could be. Or they could. I mean, I'm sure if you mounted these in a larger plastic box, they would sound awesome, like in the tender of a steam locomotive. But in this case, we're dealing with a diesel under the long hood. So I'm going to go with this because it has the weight as well. Okay, so what the first problem I have to solve is that this is a 28 millimeter speaker, and the opening is 28 millimeters on the inside, see? So they'll just fall right through, see? So in order to solve that, I have to cut two retainer rings. And what I've done is I compassed 30 millimeter ring and then with a 25 millimeter inner diameter, so that when I glue this ring into this reveal, there will be this amount, which is approximately 3 millimeters wide, this ring, which will allow this speaker with this plastic rim here to sit nicely on there. And then I can seal that airtight, this plastic ring, which is comes out a ways from the face of the speaker for a reason, because this see-through diaphragm here, it sort of pumps back and forth, right? So that's why the ring is there, so that when that diaphragm expands out from compression, doesn't hit the whatever surface it's mounted on. Where in this case there'll be plenty of room inside of here because it's open on both sides, and there's more than adequate space there, over 5 millimeters at the top there. So that's what I'm going to do for that, to seal those speakers. Now what am I going to do with the bottom here? Because this is all open and it'll just come out through the bottom of the locomotive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 20 thou sheet plastic. I just cut a much larger than I need. Again, remember how I mentioned cut large? And I just start it rounded on the pencil there. And then what I'm going to do is, before I slide it into here, I want to show you what I also had to do. There's these 4 little reveals. I don't know why they're there, but they're actually 20 thou thick by 100 thou wide. So number 125 evergreen plastic is the perfect strip to pack that out with. There's the four inside corners, just so that we get this surface flush. I don't want that air getting out of there and then having to fill that with glue. I want a nice flush surface there. So that's what I used to pack those out. And I roughed it up with a scriber and rough sandpaper, and I used a bit of CA to mount those. That's where CA comes in handy, right? When you're gluing plastic to metal like that. Okay, so once that's set, then I'm going to use this piece here. I'll just do a dry run first. This is going to get epoxied in. See here how this just pushed up inside will just conform perfectly to that inner curvature there when it's glued, and then you just sit it down, and because there's extra here, you can sit it on top with a little bit of a weight on top so that it pushes down and makes a nice tight, seal around here. All right, that's what you want. I'm going to use 5-minute epoxy. Okay, so have a nice tight seal all on the inside here. And then you can see the rim where the speaker is going to be away from there. So there's quite a bit of room to pack these rings. You can probably put a couple layers in there or use thicker material if you want, but I'm just going to go with this here, the 20 thou. And then I'm going to mount those two speakers in there like that so that it's airtight, and then this will get dropped back down into the frame when I clean up the outside of the plastic, right? It'll drop back down, and there's plenty of room for the for the drive shaft to run through here. Plenty of space. So it'll be airtight, two 28 millimeter speakers driven by this Loksound sound decoder. I think it should sound pretty good. Plus the fact that it's a turbocharged sound file, right? Which should sound really good. I tested it on my BCR locomotive, and that particular recording with the turbocharger sounds really awesome with dual speakers. So, and I'm hoping that this will have an even more bassier reflex sound to it with the airtight A-frame on the older style Atlas speaker mount. Okay? Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.